The silence in the lecture hall felt heavy, like a physical weight pressing down on everyone. Kyle remained frozen in his seat, acutely aware of dozens of alien eyes focused on him. Commander Vexeral stood at the podium, his silver scales shifting through various shades as his body processed the shock of his discovery. A sound broke the silence. It was the Pelian cadet from earlier, his translucent form flickering rapidly. Kyle had learned this meant extreme distress in Pelians. The cadet actually disappeared from view for a moment, his species' natural defense mechanism activating. When he reappeared, he was 3 seats further away from the aisle where Kyle sat. "Cadets, please remain calm," Commander Vexeral said, though his voice lacked its earlier authority. He cleared his throat, which came out as a strange clicking sound. "I am sure there is a reasonable explanation for this." Kyle slowly stood up, keeping his movements deliberate and smooth. He had read somewhere that sudden movements could trigger predator-prey responses in some species, and right now everyone was looking at him like he was a predator. "Commander, if I may speak?" Several cadets flinched at his voice. Silthra had moved another seat away, her scales now the pale color that indicated fear. Kyle felt terrible. These were his classmates, people he had studied with, eaten lunch with, and trained alongside for 3 months. Now they looked at him like he was a monster. "Yes, Cadet Martinez," the commander said, gesturing for Kyle to continue. "Perhaps you can help us understand the situation." Kyle took a breath, trying to organize his thoughts. "I promise I am not dangerous. Humans are peaceful. We joined the council because we wanted to meet other species and be part of the galactic community. Earth might sound scary when you list it like that, but it is home to us. We are used to it." A Corvani cadet, different from the one who had asked the earlier question, raised a feathered wing. "But you are from a death world." The commander just explained that Deathworlders are extremely dangerous. "You have enhanced strength and predatory instincts." "I mean, yes, technically," Kyle admitted, running a hand through his hair. The movement made several cadets lean back in their seats. "But humans are not mindless beasts. We have cities and art and music. We have families and friends. We are civilized." Commander Vexeral had been rapidly typing on his datapad, and now he looked up with an expression Kyle could not quite read. "Cadet Martinez, according to the records, you have been at this academy for 3 months. During that time, have you experienced any difficulties with our environment?" Kyle hesitated. "Well, I have felt a bit tired sometimes. The gravity here is lighter than Earth's and the air feels thin. But I just thought I was homesick or not sleeping well." "The gravity here is 0.7 standard," the commander said slowly, "and our oxygen level is 16%. You have been living in what is essentially a low-gravity, low-oxygen environment for 3 months. "Oh," Kyle said, "I guess that explains why I have been feeling sluggish during morning runs." A Zenthari cadet near the front, a male with dark blue scales, stood up. Kyle recognized him as Cortex, someone he had partnered with during navigation exercises. "Commander, permission to ask Cadet Martinez a question?" "Granted." Cortex turned to face Kyle directly, though he kept his distance. "You have been in our combat training courses. You have never shown exceptional strength or abilities. How is this possible if you are from a death world?" Kyle felt his face grow warm. "I have been holding back. I did not want to hurt anyone. Human instructors always taught us to be careful with fragile things, and everyone here seemed, fragile compared to what I am used to." The room erupted in shocked sounds. Whistles, clicks, chirps, and various other noises of distress filled the air. Commander Vexeral held up a hand for silence, and slowly the noise died down. "Cadet Martinez, I think we need a demonstration," the commander said. "Please come to the front of the room." Kyle walked down the steps between the seats, and cadets pressed themselves back as he passed. He tried to smile reassuringly, but that only seemed to make things worse. He had forgotten that humans showing teeth could look threatening to species that did not smile. At the front of the room, Commander Vexeral gestured to a metal bar resting on a stand. "This is a standard Academy strength assessment tool. It is used primarily for craft demonstrations when we have visiting warriors. The weight is set to what we consider impressive for most species. Can you attempt to lift it?" Kyle walked over to the bar and examined it. There were alien symbols on the side that he assumed indicated the weight. He gripped the bar with one hand, testing it. It felt light, very light. He lifted it easily and held it up. "Is this correct?" "It feels like maybe 18 kilograms. Commander Vexeral checked his datapad. "It is set to 40 of your human pounds. That is approximately 18 kilograms, yes. Oh, Kyle said, realizing the problem. Commander, this is not heavy at all. Human children could lift this. To demonstrate, he did several curls with the bar, lifting it up and down with one arm while barely straining. The auditorium erupted again, this time louder. The Pelian cadet disappeared completely and did not reappear. Several other cadets stood up, looking ready to bolt for the exits. Silthra had gone completely pale, her scales almost white. Please, everyone calm down, Commander Vexrel said, his voice rising. Cadet Martinez, please put the bar down. Kyle quickly set the bar back on its stand and stepped away from it, holding his hands up in what he hoped was a peaceful gesture. I am sorry. I did not mean to scare anyone. This is just normal for humans. We do not think of ourselves as super strong because everyone on Earth can do this. A small cadet from a species Kyle did not recognize spoke up, her voice trembling. What is normal strength for a human then? Kyle thought about it. Well, an average human adult can lift about 50 to 90 kilograms, depending on whether they exercise regularly. Trained humans can lift much more. Athletes can lift several hundred kilograms. The room went silent again, but this time it was the silence of shock rather than fear. Commander Vexrel sat down in a chair near the podium, looking somewhat unsteady. Commander, are you okay? Kyle asked, concerned. I am fine, Cadet Martinez, the commander replied, though his scales had gone a sickly gray color. I am simply processing the fact that I have been teaching combat tactics to someone who could probably defeat the entire class at once. I would never do that, Kyle protested. I like everyone here. You are all my friends. Cortex, who had remained standing, spoke again. But you could if you wanted to. That is the point, is it not? You have been holding back this entire time. We never knew what you were capable of. Kyle felt frustration building. Yes, I could, but I would not. Humans have something called self-control. Just because we can do something does not mean we will. Every human learns from childhood to be gentle with things that can break. We have small animals on Earth called kittens and puppies, and human children learn to pet them softly even though they could hurt them. It is the same thing here. But you are predators, another cadet said. The commander said Deathworlders have predatory instincts. Yes, humans evolved as hunters, Kyle admitted. Our eyes face forward to track prey. We have endurance to chase animals for long distances, but we also evolved cooperation and empathy. Humans survived on Earth by working together, by forming groups and helping each other. We learned to control our instincts. Commander Vexrel stood up again, his scales returning to a more normal color. Cadet Martinez, I believe you. However, you must understand the position this puts the Academy in. We have protocols for Deathworlder species, and those protocols were not followed, because no one knew humans qualified as Deathworlders. What happens now? Kyle asked quietly. That is an excellent question, the commander replied. This situation is unprecedented. I need to consult with the Academy director and the council representatives. In the meantime, I think it would be best if you waited in your quarters. Kyle felt his heart sink. Am I being expelled? No, Commander Vexrel said firmly. Not at all. But we need time to assess the situation and determine the appropriate path forward. You are not in trouble, Cadet Martinez. We are simply trying to understand how to proceed. Kyle nodded, understanding but still feeling terrible. He had not meant to cause this chaos. He had just wanted to study at the Academy and learn about the galaxy. As he walked back up the stairs toward the exit, the sea of cadets parted before him, everyone pressing back to give him space. Silthra caught his eye, and for a moment, Kyle thought he saw something other than fear in her expression, maybe sympathy. But then she looked away. Kyle left the lecture hall and walked through the corridors of the Academy, heading toward the residential section. Other students in the hallways moved aside as he approached, word having apparently spread quickly. He felt more alone than he had since arriving on Zenthar Prime. When he reached his quarters, he found the door already open. Standing inside were the only two other humans at the Academy, Lisa Wong and Greg Harper. They both looked as shell-shocked as Kyle felt. So, Greg said as Kyle entered, I guess everyone knows about Earth now. How did you find out? Kyle asked. Everyone found out, Lisa said, holding up her datapad. The entire Academy network is talking about it. Commander Vexrel sent emergency notifications to all departments. The morning sun of Zenthar Prime filtered through the massive windows of the Galactic Naval Academy's main lecture hall. The light had a slightly purple tint, different from Earth's yellow sun, but Kyle Martinez had grown used to it over the past 3 months. He sat in the middle section of the auditorium, his datapad ready, watching as other cadets filed in from dozens of different species. Commander Vexeral entered through the main doors, his silver scales catching the light. He was a Xanthari, one of the founding species of the Galactic Council, and his 4 eyes scanned the room with practiced precision. The commander moved to the podium at the front of the hall and the room fell silent. Today's lecture was marked as important in the academy schedule, though the topic had been kept vague. Kyle glanced at the cadet sitting next to him. Silthra was also Xanthari, with lighter-colored scales than the commander. She had helped Kyle with his xenobiology homework last week, patiently explaining the differences between carbon-based and silicon-based lifeforms. She noticed his look and gave him a friendly nod, her scales shifting to a warmer tone, which Kyle had learned meant she was happy. "Cadets," Commander Vexeral began, his voice carrying easily through the hall without need for amplification. "Today we discuss one of the most critical topics you will encounter in your service to the Council. Today we talk about Deathworlders." A ripple of sound moved through the cadets. Some species made clicking noises, others whistled, and a few remained silent. Kyle wasn't entirely sure what a Deathworlder was, but the name sounded ominous. He tapped a note into his datapad to look up the term later if the lecture didn't explain it clearly. The commander activated the holographic display. An image of a planet appeared, rotating slowly. It looked angry, with violent red storms swirling across its surface. "This is Krathvar, homeworld of the Krath species. Gravity is 1.8 times standard. The atmosphere is thick with sulfur compounds that would kill most of us within minutes. Temperatures range from 60 to 120 degrees Celsius. Volcanic eruptions occurred daily, and yet life evolved there." Another image appeared next to the first planet. This one showed a creature that made several cadets gasp. It stood on 4 thick legs with armor-like plating covering its body. Its arms were massive, ending in claws that looked capable of tearing through metal. "This is a Krath warrior. They evolved on a world so hostile that only the strongest survived. Their bones are 3 times denser than standard. Their muscle tissue can exert force that would crush most beings. They can survive injuries that would kill nearly any other species." Kyle watched with fascination. He had heard of the Krath before, but had never seen detailed images. They looked incredibly powerful, almost like something from an action movie back home. He wondered if there were any Krath students at the academy, but looking around, he didn't see any. Commander Vexeral continued his presentation, showing statistics and data. "Deathworlds are classified by several factors: high gravity, extreme temperatures, dangerous predators, atmospheric toxins, tectonic instability, high radiation levels, and persistent microscopic threats. A planet needs only 3 of these factors to be considered a Deathworld. Most Deathworlds have 5 or more." The commander's scales darkened, a sign of seriousness that Kyle had learned to recognize. Species that evolve on Deathworlds develop adaptations that make them extremely dangerous. Enhanced strength, superior endurance, high pain tolerance, rapid healing, and often predatory instincts. The Krath are one example. The Volnari from the ice world of Volnar 6 are another. These species are rare, and encounters with them require extreme caution. Silthra shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Kyle could tell she was disturbed by the lecture. Many of the other cadets looked equally worried. Commander Vexeral seemed to notice the mood and softened his tone slightly. "I do not tell you this to frighten you, but to prepare you. The Council has protocols for interactions with Deathworlder species. Most have been contacted and integrated peacefully. They understand that their physical capabilities can be intimidating to others. However, if you encounter an unknown Deathworlder in the field, you must follow procedure. Maintain distance, do not provoke, and call for specialized teams." The holographic display changed again, showing a chart with various species listed. Kyle recognized some of them from his xenobiology classes. The Krath were at the top, marked in red. Several other species were listed below, also in red. Then there were yellow-marked species, which the commander explained were borderline Deathworlders from challenging but not extreme environments. "You may wonder why this matters to you as cadets," Commander Vexeral said, walking across the front of the room. "The answer is simple. The galaxy is vast and we have not discovered every species yet. You may one day be the first to encounter a new Deathworlder species. Your training here will prepare you for that possibility." A Pelian cadet raised a translucent appendage, and the commander acknowledged him. The Pellion's form shimmered as he spoke. "Commander, how many Deathworlder species are currently known?" "7 confirmed," the commander replied. 3 more are under evaluation. The assessment process is thorough and takes considerable time. We must analyze planetary data, observe species behavior, and conduct extensive testing. Kyle continued taking notes, though part of his mind wandered to thoughts of Earth. He wondered how his planet would be classified in this system. Earth had some dangerous areas, sure, but it was home. It seemed normal to him. Then again, he supposed every species probably felt that way about their homeworld. Another cadet asked a question, this time a Corvani with bright blue feathers. "Commander, what about the new species joining the council? The humans? Where do they fall in these classifications?" Kyle's attention snapped back to full focus. He sat up straighter in his seat, suddenly very interested in the answer. Several other cadets turned to look at him, recognizing him as one of the few human students at the academy. Commander Vexral's scales flickered between colors, which Kyle had learned meant uncertainty. An interesting question. Humanity's application for council membership is still being processed. Their planetary data has been submitted, but the full environmental assessment is not yet complete. From preliminary reports, Earth appears to be a fairly standard world. Somewhat robust perhaps, but nothing compared to true Deathworlds. The commander pulled up a new display and Kyle felt his stomach tighten. It was Earth, his home, spinning slowly in the holographic projection. It looked beautiful, blue and green with white clouds swirling across its surface, but next to the image data began to appear. "Let us look at the preliminary data as an educational exercise," the commander said, seemingly unaware of the impact his words were about to have. "Earth's gravity is listed as 1.0 standard. Of course, that is because humans helped establish our measurement standards when they were first contacted, so their gravity became the baseline." More data appeared. Atmospheric oxygen content 21%. That is quite high compared to most inhabited worlds. Zenthar Prime, for example, maintains 16% oxygen. Higher oxygen content supports larger organisms and more vigorous activity. Kyle's datapad nearly slipped from his hands. He looked around and saw other cadets beginning to pay closer attention to the display. Silthra's scales had gone pale. "Presence of apex predators," the commander continued, reading from the data. "Multiple species including creatures designated as sharks, lions, bears, crocodiles, and wolves. Interesting. Most garden worlds have very few apex predators." The list kept growing. "Active volcanic systems, yes. Regular seismic activity, yes. Severe weather patterns. Yes, including phenomena called hurricanes, tornadoes, and tsunamis. Temperature range, 89 to 56 degrees Celsius. That is quite extreme." Kyle watched in horror as the commander unknowingly tallied up Earth's Deathworld credentials. Persistent microscopic threats, yes, extensive. Earth has widespread bacteria, viruses, and other microorganisms. Humans have evolved with millions of these organisms living inside their bodies at all times. The auditorium had gone completely silent. Commander Vexral finally looked up from his datapad and saw the expressions on his students' faces. Then his 4 eyes went wide as realization struck. His scales went pale, then flushed dark with shock. "That is 7 factors," a cadet whispered from the front row. The commander's gaze swept the auditorium and landed directly on Kyle Martinez, who sat frozen in his seat. Kyle could feel every eye in the room turning toward him. He raised one hand in a small, awkward wave, his face burning with embarrassment. "Oh," Commander Vexral said quietly, his confident lecture voice completely gone. "Oh no." Kyle wanted to say something to explain, but his mouth had gone dry. He had just spent an hour listening to a lecture about how dangerous and frightening Deathworlders were, how they required special protocols and careful handling. And now everyone in this room, including the professor, had just realized he was one of them. Silthra's chair scraped loudly against the floor as she moved it several inches away from Kyle. She looked terrified. Other cadets were staring at him with wide eyes, or whatever their species used for eyes. A few were slowly standing, as if ready to run. Kyle opened his mouth to say something reassuring, but all that came out was, I can explain." The conference room in the Academy's administrative building was larger than Kyle had expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the purple-tinted sky of Zenthar Prime, and a massive table dominated the center of the room. Kyle sat on one side with Lisa and Greg, while across from them sat Commander Vexral and Academy Director Thundra. Director Thundra was a Myriax, a species Kyle had only seen in pictures before now. She looked somewhat like a centipede, but much larger, and with a more elegant body structure. Her multiple legs moved in rippling patterns as she adjusted her position, and her compound eyes reflected the room's light in fascinating ways. Despite her alien appearance, her voice was warm and surprisingly gentle when she spoke. "Thank you for coming, cadets," Director Thundra said. "I want to make one thing clear from the start. You are not in any trouble. None of you have violated any rules or regulations. This meeting is to discuss how we move forward productively." Kyle felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. Next to him, Lisa let out a quiet breath of relief. Greg still looked worried, but less like he expected immediate deportation. Commander Vexral spoke next, his scales a neutral gray that Kyle had learned meant he was in professional mode. "We have spent the last several hours reviewing all available data on Earth and humanity. The preliminary assessment that led to the situation in my classroom was incomplete. A full environmental analysis has now been conducted." The commander activated a holographic display on the table. Earth appeared, rotating slowly. Beside it, data points began appearing, much more detailed than what had been shown in the lecture hall. "Earth is indeed a death world by our classification standards," Director Thundra said. "In fact, it ranks as one of the more extreme examples we have encountered. However, what makes this situation unique is humanity's response to their environment." Lisa leaned forward, interested. "What do you mean?" "Most Deathworlder species develop along similar paths," the director explained. "They become highly territorial, aggressive, and insular. Contact with such species requires extensive negotiation and careful protocols. Humanity, by contrast, reached out to us. When you discovered you were not alone in the galaxy, your first instinct was to seek friendship and cooperation." "That is because we thought we were the weak ones," Greg said. "Every science fiction story humans ever wrote had aliens that were stronger and more advanced than us. We never imagined we were the scary ones." Commander Vexral made a sound that might have been a laugh. "That is fascinating from a psychological perspective. Your species developed on a world that would terrify most sentient beings, yet you assumed you were vulnerable." "Earth is normal to us," Kyle said. "We do not think about gravity or oxygen levels or predators because that is just life. My grandmother lives in a place called Florida, where there are alligators in the ponds and snakes in the gardens, and she still goes outside every day to tend her flowers. That is just normal." "Alligators and snakes," Director Thundra repeated, making notes on her datapad. "I have read about these creatures. Both are predators capable of killing adult humans, correct?" "Well, yes, but it is rare," Kyle explained. "Humans learn to be careful around dangerous animals. We teach children which creatures to avoid and how to behave safely. Most of the time, if you leave them alone, they leave you alone." "You have learned to coexist with predators," the director said thoughtfully. "That explains much about human psychology. You understand danger and respect it, but you do not let it paralyze you." Lisa spoke up. "Director, can I ask a question? Is the academy environment actually safe for us? I have been tired since we arrived, but I thought I was just adjusting. Now I am wondering if something is wrong." "An excellent question," Director Thundra said. "We have been analyzing that very concern. Xanthar Prime has 0.7 standard gravity and 16% oxygen. For species that evolved in these conditions, this is ideal. For humans, it is significantly below your biological requirements." Commander Vexral pulled up more data on the display. "Your species evolved in 1.0 gravity and 21% oxygen. Living in lower gravity for extended periods can cause muscle and bone density loss in humans. Lower oxygen means your bodies are not operating at peak efficiency. Essentially, you have been living in a weakened state since arriving here. That is why I have been holding back in training." Greg realized. "I thought I was being careful not to hurt anyone, but actually I have been weakened by the environment and still stronger than most species here." "Correct," the commander confirmed. "If you were on a world with Earth standard conditions, or if you were wearing environmental suits to simulate Earth conditions, you would be significantly stronger and faster than you have demonstrated." Kyle processed this information. "So what happens now? Do we need to leave the academy?" Director Thundra's body rippled in a way that Kyle had learned meant negative. "Absolutely not. However, we need to make adjustments. The academy will install gravity and oxygen regulators in your quarters and training areas. This will allow you to recover your normal strength and maintain your health. But won't that make the danger worse? Lisa asked. If we are at full strength, we will be even more different from the other cadets. The danger was never real, Commander Vexral said firmly. Or rather, it was only real in our minds because we did not understand. Cadet Martinez, you have been here for 3 months in a weakened state, and you have never hurt anyone. You have been careful and considerate with your classmates. That tells us everything we need to know about human nature. We need to shift the conversation, Director Thundra added. Not from whether humans are dangerous, but to how we can all learn from each other. This is an opportunity for education, not just for other species to learn about humans, but for humans to learn about the rest of the galaxy. Kyle felt hope building in his chest. So we can stay? You can stay, the director confirmed. But we would like to propose something. Cadet Martinez, your accidental revelation in the lecture hall created confusion and fear. We would like to counter that with knowledge and understanding. Would you be willing to give a presentation about humanity and Earth? Something that shows who humans are, not just what you are capable of. I would be happy to, Kyle said immediately. I want people to understand that we are not monsters. Neither of us are monsters, Lisa added. We can help with the presentation too. Greg nodded agreement. We should show them Earth's good parts. The culture, the art, the history of how humans learn to work together. Excellent, Director Thundra said, her voice approving. Commander Vexral has volunteered to help coordinate the presentation. He feels partially responsible for the panic that ensued from his lecture. The commander's scales flushed a darker color, what Kyle now recognized as embarrassment. I taught based on data without context. I described Deathworlders as threats without considering that they could also be friends. That was poor teaching on my part. You did not know, Kyle said. Nobody knew. Even we did not know until today. Over the next hour, they discussed the details of the presentation. It would be held in the same lecture hall where the revelation had occurred. Attendance would be voluntary, but Director Thundra suspected most of the academy would show up out of curiosity if nothing else. The humans would have 1 week to prepare. In the meantime, engineers would install the environmental controls in the human quarters. The academy would also send out an official statement explaining the situation and asking students to give the humans a chance. As the meeting concluded, Director Thundra addressed the 3 humans one final time. I want you to understand something important. The Galactic Council has encountered many species over the centuries, some peaceful, some aggressive, some in between. What makes a species worthy of membership is not their strength or their technology, but their character. Humanity reached out in friendship, even though you had no way of knowing if we would be friendly in return. That takes courage. We just wanted to not be alone anymore, Lisa said softly. Humans spent thousands of years wondering if there was other life in the universe. When we finally found out there was, we were so excited to meet everyone. And we are excited to know you, Director Thundra replied. Once the fear fades and understanding grows, I believe humanity will be a valuable addition to the Council. You bring a unique perspective shaped by your unique world. The 3 humans left the administrative building feeling much better than when they had entered. The sky was darkening, 2 of Zenthar Prime's 3 moons rising above the horizon. Students were heading to evening meal in the cafeteria, and Kyle noticed many of them staring at the humans as they walked past. This is going to be weird for a while, Greg observed. Everyone looking at us like we might snap and go feral at any moment. Then we show them we are not going to snap, Kyle said with determination. We prepare the best presentation we can and we show them who humans really are. They entered the cafeteria and got their meals. The room went quiet as other cadets noticed them. Kyle carried his tray toward his usual table where Silthra and Cordex normally sat. The table was empty. He looked around and saw them sitting on the opposite side of the cafeteria, pointedly not making eye contact. Guess we are sitting alone tonight, Lisa said, seeing the same thing. The next morning, Kyle woke to find that the academy maintenance team had worked through the night. His quarters now had a control panel by the door with settings for gravity and oxygen levels. A helpful note in standard galactic script explained how to adjust the settings. Kyle experimented with the controls, bringing the gravity up to 1.0 standard and the oxygen to 21%. The change was immediate and noticeable. Kyle took a deep breath and felt like he could actually fill his lungs properly for the first time since arriving on Zenthar Prime. His body felt more solid, more grounded. He had not realized how much he had been struggling until the struggle was removed. Lisa knocked on his door, and when he opened it, she was grinning. "Did you adjust your settings yet?" "I feel amazing. Like I could run a marathon." "Same," Kyle agreed. "I did not realize how weak I was feeling until now. This is what normal feels like." Greg joined them in the hallway, looking equally energized. "Okay, so apparently we have been operating at maybe 60 or 70% capacity this whole time. No wonder I was tired all the time." The three humans headed to breakfast, and Kyle noticed the difference immediately. His steps felt normal instead of slightly floaty. When he picked up his breakfast tray, it had actual weight to it rather than feeling like it might drift away. Everything just felt right. The cafeteria was busy with morning activity, and once again conversation died down when the humans entered. But this time Kyle noticed something different. Along with the fear in some faces, there was curiosity in others. Pipri waved at them from across the room, though she was sitting with a group of her own species and did not call them over. They sat at the same table as last night, and this time 2 other cadets approached. Both were Zenthari, though Kyle did not know them personally. They stopped a respectful distance from the table. "Cadet Martinez," one of them said. "We wanted to apologize for the reaction yesterday. We were scared, but that is not an excuse for treating you badly." Kyle was surprised and pleased. "Thank you. That means a lot." "We have been thinking," the other Zenthari said. "You have been here for 3 months and never hurt anyone. That should count for more than statistics about your planet. We are still friends, right?" Kyle asked. The first Zenthari's scales shifted to a warm color. "Yes, still friends. We just need time to adjust to this new information." After they left, Lisa smiled. "See, people are coming around already." "Some people," Greg corrected, nodding toward a table where several cadets were very obviously avoiding looking at the humans. "Others are still scared." "That is okay," Kyle said. "We just need to do a good job with the presentation. Show them we are more than just strong predators from a scary planet." The 3 of them spent their free time over the next few days working on the presentation. They gathered videos and images from Earth, carefully selecting material that would help their classmates understand human culture and values. They wrote scripts and practiced their timing, making sure the presentation would be informative but not overwhelming. Commander Vexrel met with them several times to review their progress. The commander had taken the revelation personally, and Kyle could tell he was determined to make things right. "This section about human art is excellent," the commander said during one review session. "It shows creativity and emotional depth. But I think you should also address the elephant in the room." "The what?" Lisa asked. "Sorry, that is a human expression," Kyle explained. "It means the obvious thing everyone is thinking about but not saying." "Exactly," Commander Vexrel said. "Everyone is wondering if humans are dangerous. You should address that directly rather than avoiding the topic." "We do not want to scare people more," Greg protested. "Fear comes from the unknown," the commander replied. "If you acknowledge the reality of human capabilities but show how you control them, that is more reassuring than pretending you are not strong." Kyle considered this. "You are right. We should be honest about what we can do, but also clear about our choice not to use that strength to hurt others." They revised their presentation to include a section on human physical capabilities and the cultural values that shaped how humans used those capabilities. It was a delicate balance, but Kyle thought they got it right. On the 3rd day after the revelation, Kyle was walking to his xenobiology class when he encountered Silthra in the hallway. She had been avoiding him since the lecture, and now they were face to face with nowhere to hide. "Hello, Silthra," Kyle said, keeping his voice gentle. Her scales flickered through several colors before settling on a neutral gray. "Hello, Kyle. I miss studying with you," Kyle said honestly. "You explained complex concepts better than any of my professors." Silthra's scales shifted to a warmer tone, though she still looked uncertain. "I am sorry for avoiding you. I was frightened. You are my friend, but suddenly I learned you are from a death world, and I did not know how to process that. I am still the same person I was before you knew about Earth," Kyle pointed out. "Nothing about me changed, just your knowledge of where I come from." "I know," Silthra said. "Intellectually, I know that. But emotions are not always logical. I keep thinking about how you could hurt me if you wanted to, and it is frightening." Kyle thought carefully about his response. You could hurt me too if you wanted. Your species has claws and sharp teeth. But I trust you not to use them on me because we are friends. I am asking you to trust me the same way. Silthra was quiet for a long moment. You make a good point. I have never thought about my own claws as weapons because I would never use them that way. Exactly, Kyle said. I have strength, but I would never use it against a friend. That would make me a bad person, and I do not want to be a bad person. I will come to your presentation, Silthra said, and I will try to remember that my friend Kyle is the same person he always was. That is all I can ask, Kyle replied, feeling hopeful. Word spread about the upcoming presentation, and the academy buzzed with anticipation. Some students were excited to learn more about humans. Others were nervous about attending but felt obligated since it was an official academy event. A few, like Silthra, were genuinely trying to overcome their fear and understand. The night before the presentation, Kyle had trouble sleeping. He lay in his bunk, staring at the ceiling of his quarters, thinking about everything that had happened. 3 months ago, he had been so excited to be accepted into the Galactic Naval Academy. It was a dream come true, a chance to explore the stars and meet alien species. Now that dream felt fragile. If the presentation went badly, if people stayed afraid, what kind of future would humans have in the galactic community? Would they always be the scary ones, the Deathworlders that others avoided? Kyle's datapad chimed with a message. It was from his mother back on Earth. She had heard about the situation through official channels and wanted to check on him. Kyle sent back a message assuring her he was fine and that things would work out. He tried to sound more confident than he felt. Another message came in, this time from Director Thundra. It was brief but encouraging. She wrote that she believed in them and that the Academy was proud to have human students. Whatever happened tomorrow, they would face it together. Kyle finally fell asleep thinking about Earth. He dreamed of his grandmother's house in Florida, where alligators lounged in the sun by the pond and mockingbirds sang in the trees. In the dream, he tried to explain to an alien visitor that this was normal and safe, but they kept backing away in fear. He woke up feeling unsettled. Morning came too quickly. Kyle, Lisa, and Greg met early to do a final review of their presentation. They ran through it twice, timing each section and making small adjustments. Commander Vexrel joined them for the second run-through and offered a few suggestions. Remember to make eye contact with the audience, the commander advised. It shows confidence and honesty. Humans might see it as friendly, but many species will as well. What about species where eye contact is aggressive? Lisa asked. Then they will understand you are not looking directly at them, the commander replied. You cannot please everyone, so focus on being genuine. That will come through regardless of cultural differences. As the time for the presentation approached, the 3 humans made their way to the lecture hall. Kyle's heart was pounding. This was it. This was their chance to change the narrative, to show that Deathworlders could be friends. They entered through the back entrance and saw that the hall was packed. Every seat was filled and students were standing along the walls. Kyle spotted Silthra in her usual seat sitting with Cadets. Pipri was in the front row, her large ears perked up with interest. Even students from advanced years had come to watch. Director Thundra was in the front row along with several other faculty members. She caught Kyle's eye and made a gesture with one of her many legs that he interpreted as encouragement. Commander Vexrol walked onto the stage and addressed the audience. Thank you all for coming. What happened in this hall several days ago was unfortunate. We learned that assumptions and incomplete information can lead to fear. Today we have the opportunity to replace that fear with understanding. Please welcome Cadets Kyle Martinez, Lisa Wong, and Greg Harper. The 3 humans walked onto the stage and the room fell silent. Hundreds of eyes watched them from dozens of species. Kyle took a deep. The image of Earth rotated slowly on the holographic display, and Kyle let the audience take it in for a moment before continuing. He could see some cadets leaning forward with interest while others still looked wary. That was okay. They had time to win people over. Earth is our home, Kyle repeated. When we look at this planet, we do not see a death world. We see beauty and diversity. We see oceans that cover most of the surface, land with mountains and forests and deserts. We see a world full of life in countless forms. This is what we think of when we think of Earth. Lisa stepped forward to take over. Humans did not evolve to be warriors or predators in the way you might think. Yes, we are hunters. Our ancestors tracked animals across long distances because we could outlast them. We have endurance. But we also evolved cooperation. Humans survived by working together, by forming communities, by caring for those who could not care for themselves. The display showed images of human families, parents with children, groups of friends laughing together, communities gathering for celebrations. Kyle watched the audience's reaction. Some of the tension seemed to ease as they saw humans in social contexts looking happy and peaceful. Greg clicked to the next section. Let us talk about human culture. We are not just physical beings. We create art and music. We tell stories. We build things not just because they are useful, but because they are beautiful. The display showed famous artworks from Earth's history, paintings and sculptures and architecture from different cultures and time periods. Then it showed modern art, abstract pieces that made several cadets tilt their heads in confusion, which made Greg smile. Art is how humans express emotions and ideas that we cannot put into words, Greg explained. Every human culture has developed its own artistic traditions. Some are thousands of years old. We make art because we need to, because creating beauty is as important to us as eating or sleeping. Lisa returned to the podium. Music is especially important to humanity. Let me show you. She played an audio file and gentle piano music filled the lecture hall. It was a simple melody, peaceful and calming. Kyle watched as several cadets visibly relaxed, their bodies responding to the soothing sounds. The Pelian cadet who had disappeared during Commander Vexral's lecture actually became more solid, his translucent form stabilizing. That was composed by a human named Chopin about 200 years ago, Lisa said when the music ended. Now listen to this. The next piece was completely different. A full symphony with powerful crescendos and dramatic swells of sound. It was exciting and energizing. Kyle saw some cadets' eyes widen, their bodies responding to the emotional intensity of the music. That was Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, composed over 200 years ago as well, Lisa continued. Humans create music to express every possible emotion. Joy, sadness, anger, love, hope, fear. We use sound to communicate what we feel deep inside. A Zenthari cadet raised a hand and Lisa nodded for the question. Why are you showing us this? What does music have to do with being from a death world? Lisa smiled. That is exactly the point. Yes, humans are physically strong because we evolved on a challenging planet, but that is not all we are. We are also creatures of emotion and creativity. The same species that can lift heavy weights also composes beautiful music. We are complicated just like every other species. Kyle took over for the next section. Now let us talk about human history. This is important because it shows how we learned to control our strength and our instincts. The display showed images from Earth's past. Ancient civilizations building monuments, medieval castles and trading routes. Industrial Revolution factories. Modern cities with towering buildings. Humans have not always been peaceful, Kyle admitted. For thousands of years we fought each other. Different groups of humans competed for resources and territory. We had wars that killed millions of people. Our history has dark chapters that we are not proud of. The audience was very quiet now, listening carefully. Kyle continued, but we learned. Over time, humans realized that cooperation was better than conflict. We formed larger and larger communities. We developed laws and governments. We created the United Nations, an organization where all human nations could work together to solve problems peacefully. Greg added, when we finally developed space travel and started looking outward, we were united as a species. Earth's nations still have disagreements sometimes, but we work them out through discussion and compromise. We learned that violence is a last resort, not a first response. That is why humans were so excited to discover the Galactic Council, Lisa said. We spent our entire history learning to cooperate with other humans. Now we get to apply those lessons to cooperation with other species. Yes, we could use our strength to take what we want, but we choose not to because we learned that building is better than destroying. Kyle clicked to a new slide. Let us address the concern everyone has been thinking about. Are humans dangerous? The mood in the room shifted immediately. This was the question everyone wanted answered. Kyle took a breath and decided to be completely honest. Yes, he said simply. Humans can be dangerous. We are strong by galactic standards. We can endure injuries that would kill many species. We can run long distances without tiring. We can eat things that would poison others. These are facts about human biology. Several cadets shifted uncomfortably, but Kyle pressed on. However, capability is not the same as intent. Let me give you an example. Human parents are much stronger than human children. A human parent could easily hurt their child if they chose to. But they do not choose to. Instead, human parents use their strength to protect their children, to lift them up, to keep them safe. We learn from childhood to be gentle with those who are more fragile than we are. The display showed images of humans interacting with small animals, a child carefully holding a tiny kitten, a person feeding birds from their hand, a veterinarian treating an injured rabbit. Humans share Earth with many creatures that are much smaller and weaker than we are, Kyle explained. We learn to be careful. We learn to control our strength. A human child learns not to squeeze the kitten too hard, not to step on the turtle, not to grab the bird. This is basic human behavior. We apply the same principle here. Lisa stepped forward again. Every single day at this academy, we humans have been moderating our behavior. When we shake hands with someone, we are very gentle. When we walk through crowded hallways, we are careful not to bump into anyone. When we practice combat techniques, we hold back. This is not unusual for us. This is just how humans behave in any situation where others might be hurt by our carelessness. A Corvani cadet spoke up without raising her wing first. But what if you got angry? What if someone provoked you? Greg answered this one. That is a fair question. Yes, if a human felt truly threatened, our instincts might kick in. But here's the thing. Humans have very high thresholds for what we consider a real threat. Growing up on Earth, we deal with stress and challenges constantly. Someone insulting us or pushing us in a hallway would not trigger a violent response because that is minor compared to what we are used to. Kyle added. Also, humans have strong cultural taboos against violence. If I hit someone in anger, I would not just face academy discipline. I would be ashamed of myself. My family would be disappointed in me. Other humans would judge me as someone who could not control himself. The social consequences of violence are severe in human society. The presentation continued with more information about human values and beliefs. They talked about human concepts like justice and fairness. They explained how humans viewed education as important, which was why they had applied to the academy in the first place. They showed images of human schools and libraries and research facilities. Humans are curious, Lisa explained. We want to understand the universe. We want to learn new things. That is why we are here. Not to intimidate anyone or prove how strong we are, but to learn from all of you. Every species here has knowledge and perspectives that we want to understand. As the presentation approached its conclusion, Kyle returned to the podium one final time. I know the past week has been confusing and scary for many of you. You thought you knew us, and then you found out we are from a death world. That changed everything in your minds. He paused, looking out at the audience. He saw Silthra watching him intently, her scales a thoughtful blue color. He saw Cordex with his arms crossed, but his posture relaxed. He saw Pipri in the front row, her large ears perked forward with complete attention. But here is what I want you to understand, Kyle continued. We are still the same people we were before you knew about Earth. I am still the Kyle who asked for help with navigation homework. Lisa is still the person who started a study group for quantum mechanics. Greg is still the guy who tells terrible jokes in the cafeteria. Earth being a death world does not change who we are as individuals. Lisa and Greg joined Kyle at the front of the stage. Lisa spoke next. We want to be your friends and classmates. We want to learn from you and teach you about humanity. We want to be part of this community. All we ask is that you give us a chance. We are not asking you to stop being cautious, Greg added. If you need time to adjust to this new information, that is okay. But please judge us on our actions, not on statistics about our planet. We have been here for 3 months without incident. We hope to be here for M.